What I want to do is I just want to take a quick second to introduce tonight's speaker. He's no stranger to the Freedom Night stage. He has been here several times before. Incredible testimony, incredible person. And it's funny, I've actually told this to several different people, but there have been three men that when I started coming to this church that directly impacted me. Once I met them, I knew I wanted to become a better person and become a better man in Christ. And Matt Cheek is definitely one of those people. So if you guys wouldn't mind helping me welcome Matt Cheek to the stage.
Make me cry, man. Thanks, brother. What is up, Freedom Night? All right, so I'm no stranger to this stage, but I'm nervous. So I don't know why. So I know half of you in this room. But for those of you that don't know me, my name is Matt Cheek. I'm 36 years old. We've been coming to this church, my wife and I and 2 kids, for it'll be 7 years this year. I believe that David upstairs has a picture of my family, maybe. All right. There it is. All right, here we go. So there's my beautiful wife, Ashley. And for those of you who have met her, know that she completes me because I am all over the place. I mean, ADD like no other. So if somebody walks in, I might stop and have like a squirrel moment. But anyway, that's my beautiful wife, Ashley, next to me. Sitting on my lap there is my 10-year-old daughter, Haley. And then the crazy kid in the plaid shirt is Colton. He's 6. That kid is a ball of fire. They were going to come tonight, but they weren't able to make it because my daughter does cheerleading and consumes every hour of our being in our household. So with that being said, who else heard my testimony before? Anybody? I know there's got to be a few people in here that's heard mine, other than the volunteers. So great, that's awesome. I'm glad you guys haven't, so I want to share it with you guys. So I'm going to go back a little bit further. Most of you guys have heard my testimony from 2011 up until now, but I'm going to go all the way back to my childhood. I seem like I have it all together. I shouldn't have it all together because of the household that I grew up in, and it was not my choice. Sometimes we are dealt families that we have to deal with. So I'm 36. I was born in 1981. We're going to go back to about 1990. We lived in Northern Kentucky, my mom, my dad, my brother, and I. And my dad got transferred with his job to North Carolina for the company that he worked with. My mom had a full-time job. She quit her job. We all moved down there in a little town about 30 minutes southeast of Asheville, North Carolina. So if you've ever been to Asheville, beautiful place. Where we lived at was straight up Mayberry. I'm talking one stoplight and a grocery store. That was it. So we leave from Northern Kentucky of basically city lights to this small town that has nothing there, and we hated it. It was terrible. It was terrible. But my dad was making enough money that my mom didn't have to work, so my mom was kind of a stay-at-home mom. So we lived up in this mountain called Spruce Pine, and it took probably about 45 minutes to drive down to the bottom of the mountain to where our school was, but my dad's company was putting us up in this apartment while our house was getting built. So our house gets built. We're down there, and my dad is working all the time, but he's home. Before we had moved down there, my dad traveled all the time. He was the dad that was never at any of my practices, but he was always at my games. He'd leave on Sunday night, he'd come home on Thursday. And it was like that from the time I was born until we moved to North Carolina. So we're in North Carolina. My dad's making enough money that my mom doesn't have to work. My mom's basically a stay-at-home mom. They built this $500,000 house. Material-wise, we had everything, but their marriage was ultimately set up for failure because they were never around each other. And now here they are, seeing each other every night, and one thing led to another. Well, a few months after we were in the new house, my dad comes home, and my mom and them, they were fighting. It was just a bad household. Well, one night we're sitting there, and this black Cadillac pulls up in the driveway, and my dad's gone for work, and it's probably about 7:30, 8 o'clock. It's just getting dark in the summer, and this lady comes to the front door, and she's banging on the front door, bang, 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 bang. And I'm scared to answer the door. I'm 9 and a half, 10 years old, and my brother's only 2 years older than me. So, imagine being 9 and 11, and this car pulls up. It's dark out, and somebody's beating on the door. It sounds like something metal. So I go to the front door, and it's a lady. So I'm thinking, okay, that's at least not as scary. So I open the door, and this lady's standing there, and she has a pistol in her hand. And she says, "Where's your mom at?" And I said, "I have no idea." She said, "Good." She said, "She's not coming home tonight because when I see her, I'm going to kill her." So you guys can kind of probably figure out where the story's going. So one thing leads to another. We don't have cell phones back then because it's 1990. My dad comes home from work, and we tell him, Dad, there was this lady here. She's threatening to kill Mom. We don't know what's going on. And all along, he knew what was going on, but my brother and I didn't. So my mom comes home that night at probably about 10:30 or 11 o'clock, and we have a little family powwow in the living room, and my mom breaks down and tells my brother and I that she's been having an affair on my dad. And I was a mama's boy, so my world was completely turned upside down. I'm talking like cried myself to sleep every night after that for a long, long time. So 2 days later, my dad moves back from North Carolina back up to here. And reminder, my mom has no family down there. So it's my mom, my brother, and myself. My dad moves back. The day that my dad moved out, the guy that my mom was having an affair with moved in. So, I mean, you go from having what you thought was a perfect family. We built this $500,000 home. We had everything material you can imagine. And my dad leaves, and this guy that I've never even met before that my mom has been having an affair on with my dad for I don't even know how long. I don't do well with telling the story because I try not to think about it, but I just felt that it had to set the tone for when bad things happen to good people, because I was 9 years old, right? I mean, what have I done wrong as a 9-year-old for bad things to happen to me? So shortly after, this guy moves in. He's not that bad of a guy, really. I don't want to accept him because he's not my dad. One thing leads to another. Their relationship starts falling south. He's a very, very, very successful businessman. I mean, multi-millionaire, to be honest with you, but his wife obviously wanted nothing to do with him, and she was taking him to the cleaners and everything that he owned. So we, my brother and I are like, you know what, let's just give this guy a chance. We hated him, but we're like, you know what, let's just do it for Mom. So things were good for a little bit, and then he started getting bad. I remember coming home from school one day, and I hear my mom and him fighting in their bedroom. And he's like, I'll kill you, this, and that. And I'm thinking, what is going on? So I go in there, I'm like, leave my mom alone. And he comes past his dresser, opens the dresser drawer up, walks right up to my head, points a pistol right to my forehead, and he says, I said, we're going back to Kentucky. I'm calling my dad. He said, if you call your dad, I'll blow your brains out, and I'll kill your mom and your dad after I kill you. So now I'm living in this house of fear of, I'm 9 and a half, getting ready to turn 10 years old, and I'm scared to death. Like, I don't even want to go to bed at night. They fight all the time. I remember one night they got in a fight. My brother and I were sleeping, and all of a sudden you hear boom, 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 and you hear this gun just shoot in the room, and he's threatening to kill her. So it wasn't long after that, my mom actually called my dad, and she said, you need to come get the boys. This is not a safe environment for them anymore. So my dad came down there, and, I mean, he's going back to an area that I would never imagine him ever going. I would never go back to that city again if I was my dad, being where I am in life now. And he comes and gets us, and he actually extends his hand out to my mom, and he says, you know what, I'll always love you. I don't want you back, but you need to leave here. I'm giving you a free ticket back. I'll help you move back. So, I mean, it says a lot about the character of who my dad is, and I strive every day to be who my dad is because he's one of the greatest people that I've ever met. So my mom stays, and then probably about a year later, I didn't see my mom. I mean, I was a mama's boy. I came back up here to from North Carolina, and it was depression like you've never seen it before. Played basketball all the time. I actually didn't play that year because I was so depressed. I had no energy. I laid around all the time. And so we went back to North Carolina to visit my mom that summer, and their marriage had actually taken a complete 180. They were in this church. They were doing great. For the time being, it gets bad again. But anyway, so my mom's like, you're going to go to this church camp. I think it'll be really good for you. I'm like, I'm not going to some stupid church camp, Mom. It's not going to happen. She's like, you need to go. You need to go. You need to go. So I'm like, fine, I'll go. And I didn't want to go, I'll be honest with you, is because I peed the bed until I was 12 years old. So I was like, I'm not going to some church camp. What am I going to do? I'm going to pee the bed. She's like, who cares you're going? So I went. My brother still makes fun of me that all the time now. So anyway, I go to this church camp, and all I knew was basketball. So there was this pastor there. His name was Tony Shirley. He's from Cincinnati Christian University, and him and my mom were really close. So he called my mom, and he's like, Matt's just very distant. He's not going to any of the small group things, yada, yada, yada. All he wants to do is play basketball. So the last day I woke up, and there were no basketballs on the court. So I'm like, all right, what am I going to do? And he's like, well, today you're not playing basketball. So I got engaged, and I started hanging out with all the small groups and meeting all the people and doing all the different things. And that night, he actually spoke. He was closing the camp down, and he did an altar call, and I gave my life to Jesus at the age of 11, that summer going on 12, and it was the greatest thing ever. And they gave me this when I was there, and it says, I don't have many things that are 20 years old, But this right here was given to me, and it says, Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. And at the time, I didn't really understand what that Bible verse meant. I just knew that, to get to heaven, you had to have Jesus. And, I looked back when I came back from North Carolina that summer. I got back into basketball, and I got hooked back up with all my old friends from when I was down there, from up here before. And I started to question God, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do bad things happen to good people? And I think we can all say that all the time. We all have our testimonies. We've all slipped up short. We've all fell. We've all backslidden. We've all sinned. So, you might label yourself a bad person. You're not. We're all made in God's image, so we're all good people. So when I say, why do bad things happen to good people, everybody in this room is included in that. And I questioned all the time, why do bad things happen to good people? So, here comes 2011. For those of you that don't know my testimony, in 2011, we weren't in church still. I went through the high school years partying. I went through the college years partying with all my friends, hanging out in the bars, chasing every girl in town, until I found my wife, which if only I could have found her earlier. So anyway, I'm having a squirrel moment here just because my mind's going in 80,000 different places. So, why do bad things happen to good people? That was the question that came to myself. So in 2011, again, that's where I was at, we weren't in church. We were married. I had the job that I have now. We had everything. I felt like I had everything. But, we got married in a church, but we didn't have God in the center of our relationship. So 2011 comes, and I keep going to the doctor because something's not right. And they're like, it's stress, it's anxiety, it's your job, you just worry, it's this, it's that. Well, they'd scanned me from the chin down. They did all these blood tests. But they hadn't scanned my head. So I was playing golf with a bunch of my buddies one night. They were all drinking and having a good time, and I was like, you know what? I'm leaving. And they're like, where are you going? I was like, I'm going to the hospital. Like, what do you mean you're going to the hospital? I was like, I'm going to the hospital because I want to get my head scanned because they've given me a clean bill of health from the chin down. I said, something's just not right. So I went to the doctor, a guy I played basketball with in high school. His sister just happened to be the emergency room doctor, and I was telling her what was going on. I was like, I just want a clean bill of health. I was like, I'm 29 years old. I said, something's just not right. I just have this weird feeling. And she's like, well, we can't just scan your head. And so I lied to her and told her I had a really bad headache, and they scanned my head. She comes back in the room, and she looked like she saw a ghost. And she said, I don't know what's going on in the right front part of your brain, but you need to follow up with your doctor. So 2 days later, they did a CAT scan there. 2 days later, I got an MRI. My family doctor is really good friends with my in-laws. He called me, and he's like, you have a brain tumor. I'm like, what? I have a brain tumor? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's not that bad, yada, yada, yada. You're not going to go to this doctor. You're going to go across the river. The rest was kind of history. 8 days later, I had the surgery. 10 days later, a friend of mine that used to be on staff here invited me here, and this very room, the new building wasn't there yet. I sat in the very back, the farthest seat that I could get away from this altar. I sat in, and we've came every week since then. God spoke directly to my heart, and all the feelings that I had in North Carolina when I received that came back to me at that moment. So, fast forwarding, I want to talk 3 points. So when I talked to Chris, I talked to Jake about this message, I told him, I said, I have 3 or 5 messages that I could preach whenever you guys need me to. And Chris text messaged me, and he said, do you want to speak January 7th? I said, yeah. So I had a message that I felt was appropriate, but then, things change, and I mixed it up a little bit. And this was one of them. Why do bad things happen to good people? Well, I have 3 feelings on why I think bad things happen to good people. And they're maybes. They're not definites. I don't know. So maybe bad things happen to good people because we live in a messed up, broken, bruised world. Like, it's just cursed from the get-go. And it goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. You see, we lived it was perfect. It was a paradise. There was nothing wrong with it. There was no sorrow, no heartache, no struggles. There was nothing at all. And then Adam and Eve sinned. And we can't get mad at them because we are who we are because of them, So all the suffering, all the pain that we go through is a result of man's sin at the beginning chapters of Genesis. And you see, it's kind of like if you bought a car, okay? You buy a car, brand new, you're driving down the road, you lose control of it yourself, and you hit the back of somebody else or you hit a telephone pole. You can't blame the manufacturer because of your actions. It's the same thing. We can get political, and same thing with guns. If somebody shoots somebody with a gun, all of a sudden they want to go after the gun manufacturer. More people were killed with a hammer last year than people were killed with a gun, so if you really want to know. But so anyway, what I'm saying is it's broken as a result of our actions. Everything that is broken in our life is a result of the actions that man does. Sickness, disease, any natural disaster, hurricanes, tornadoes, anything you could possibly imagine, struggles of life, a few of the things that I have written down, the struggles in our work, even all the way down to the childbirth, the pain is came from a result of man's sin. See, they broke it, and the world is no longer as God created it. You know, another thing that I think that maybe bad things happen to good people to remind us that we're not home yet. They're going to throw a scripture up here. It's John 16:33. And it tells us, I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. Is that 33? It is. Okay, yeah, here we go. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart. That means take notice. I have overcome the world. What Jesus is saying there is, he's saying that in this world you're going to have trouble. I mean, I know everybody in this room is battling something right now, and if you think you aren't, it's coming. Storms are going to come, storms are going to go. You know, in 2011, when I faced my brain tumor, I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have a 4-year-old daughter, and our son was 3 weeks old, and they don't even know who their dad is, and I'm going to die of this brain tumor. That's all I kept thinking. That's all I kept thinking. I didn't think about anything else. And then we found this church, and I felt the love of God again. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to put all my trust in him. That's all I can do at this point in time. I don't know if I'm going to live from this. I don't know if I'm going to die from this. So backpedaling in 2011, so everything did go fine. They surgically removed it. I had a picture. I was going to send it to them to post up there, but I don't know how people's stomachs are, so I didn't want to do that to you. But they cut me from here to there, and I had this hat on just because I have it on, but it's nothing to do with my story. So anyway, they cut me. I had 48 staples from, it looked like a set of headphones across the top of my head. They got all the tumor out through surgery by the grace of God. And they just said, you know what? The likelihood of it coming back in 2 years is very good. Every day after 2 years, you have a better chance of it never coming back. So back to the scripture. He says, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart. I have overcome the world. And what he's telling us is nobody's exempt from trouble. You see, we get caught up in all the worldly things. You know, we build houses, and we get these jobs, and we work all the time, and we go to all these social events, and we forget that this is all temporary, that this is not our home. And what we have to understand is that this is temporary. You know, your girlfriend's mad at you, temporary. Your dad's mad at you, temporary. Your mom doesn't want to speak to you, temporary. You lost your job, temporary. All the things that you're struggling with right now are temporary. They mean nothing when you stand at the altar, it's in front of the throne of God, and Jesus at the right hand. That means nothing. It's all going to be rubbish, you know. But it does mean something. It means that they're going to take account for what you do in this world. You see, we forget that Jesus is now there prepping a place for us. You know, he says, my Father's house has many rooms. Many is an infinite. And that means that every person in this room, if you feel lost, there's still a room there for you. I promise you that. I promise you right now. And that place is our home. You see, that place has no pain. That place has no suffering. That place has no separation. There's no tears. Rather, it has streets of gold. It has a gate made of jewels. And the air that you breathe in there is nothing but joy. Nothing but joy. And finally, the last maybe, just maybe, is bad things happen to good people, possibly to teach us or prepare us. So, you know, I went through my brain tumor in 2011, and I thought that God healed me completely. I thought, you know what, this is just, you know, every day I'd be in, I mean, I went from the back row, and anybody that goes to this church knows that I don't sit past the third row. It just doesn't happen. Like, we'll fight over it, okay? Because I have super ADD, like I said. Like, I mean, if somebody came up here right now, I'd have a squirrel moment, is what I call it. You know, if you've ever seen the movie Up, the squirrel, you know, so. But I went from the back to the front. I went from not wanting to talk to anybody to leading small groups in my house. And if you would have talked to me 15 years ago when I was 21 years old, and I would have laughed at you if they would have said, you know what, you're going to be leading people to Jesus one day. I'd be like, yeah, okay, let's take a bet on that. I guarantee it's not going to happen. And it wasn't that I didn't have a relationship with God. You know, it still goes back to that moment right there when I was 12 years old. Because if I didn't have that moment right there, when I got the invite to sit back there, I wouldn't have taken it had I not had that moment in my life. So what I'm here for you is, I hope that when you leave here tonight that you have a moment like that you come back when the doors are open every single time, or whether it be 5 or 10 years down the road, that you have that moment when you say, man, I remember when Matt Cheek spoke at Freedom Night. If you're going through something, that these doors are always open. You know that you can come through these doors. But like I said, the last one is finally, maybe, just maybe, bad things happen to good people because God's trying to teach us to prepare something. If you go to 1 Samuel 17, it's the story of David and Goliath. Every single day, every day, Goliath would go out on one hill, and the Israelites would be on another. And this is a good story. I mean, you hear the stories of the Bible, you're like, man, I think it all the time when I'm in church. How do they remember all these stories all the time? You got to read it. You do, honestly. It's like, and once you start reading your Bible, 1 Samuel 17 tells us, David and Goliath. Goliath was over here, the Israelites were over here, and King Saul was in ruling at the time, and David comes, and he's just a young boy. He's just, he's tending the sheep, and he comes, and he says, you know what? I can beat that giant. And Saul's like, no, you can't. You're too small. You're too young. You're too inexperienced. You can't fight. You don't know what you're doing. And every single day, the Israelites were trembling. They were scared to death. And like I said, David comes, and David told Saul, he said, you know what? I've already defeated a lion. I've already defeated a bear. He said, my God protected me then, and my God's going to protect me now. To imagine to have the faith that David had. I mean, the giant Goliath was, some say, 9 foot tall. I mean, the tallest basketball player now is like 7'7", so put another 1.5 feet on top of him, basically, and that's what you have. And he was a force to be reckoned with. I mean, he looked like The Rock or something. So, or me, But I always tell people all the time, I'm joking around here, all the guys that are on staff here are big into CrossFit and stuff like that. I walk by and they'll bump into you. I'm like, I'm sorry, pardon my build. And they just look at me like, what? Pardon your build? I'm like, yeah, you'll figure it out. So, but anyway, I can imagine every single time that David was in the fields with the sheep that he didn't understand why some of the sheep would probably get attacked. Because, I mean, if anybody knows anything about small animals that are defenseless, coyotes and wolves and different animals are picking those animals off. So I'm sure David was out there tending the sheep, and there'd be wild animals attacking him, and he probably wondered why God would allow these things to happen. But what I think is those animals were able to attack those sheep when David was tending them because God was preparing him for something greater. God was preparing him to take on Goliath. So you know what? If you can get past this little bump in the road, and when the big bump comes, you're going to know how to handle that problem. And I'm telling you, we all have problems in life. You know what I mean? Like, I never thought that I was going to get over the time that my mom and my dad got a divorce. I thought that was the end of my life. I remember my dad telling me, he got to the point where I was crying myself to sleep. And I look back, and my daughter's 10. I couldn't imagine saying this to her, but my dad's my dad. He's there to toughen you up and say, Matt, suck it up. Let's go. And I remember him telling me, he's like, you know what? He's like, do you want to move to North Carolina again? I said, no, I don't ever want to go back there. He said, well, if you keep crying, you're going back there. And I'm like, really? Like, you love me and you're going to send me back to hell? I mean, that was hell. So, but, yeah, I think he's watching online, actually. It'd be pretty cool if he was. So, but God was merely preparing David for something larger and bigger, a greater challenge, and that was to destroy Israel's greatest enemy. And I want to start talking about mountains because that enemy, Goliath, was a mountain to them. That enemy, Goliath, was a mountain that couldn't be moved. But the Bible talks to us about mountains. You see, the lion and the bear were God's boot camp, to prepare David for bigger battles. You see, I'm going to go back to my 3 points. Adam and Eve, they created a mountain. They created a mountain for all of us, the sin of the world, right? I'm not mad at them because here's the thing. I've had mountains in my life now that I look back and I'm thankful they're there. I go back and I get scans every 3 to 6 months, and I tell people all the time about this. If you ever want to talk about it, I'll talk your ear off all day long. I'm not nervous anymore, okay? So I'm very few people that that had a brain tumor. They go every 3 to 6 months to get a scan, and you go to get in that machine, and I'm thankful that I get to go in that machine every 3 months because it keeps me humble. It keeps me rooted in God's word. And so, Adam and Eve created mountains, and this world that we live in is a mountain, okay? That was the other thing about bad things happening to good people is, this world we live in is corrupt, and Goliath was David and Israel's mountain. So, you see, it's that time of year that I had a follow-up scan. I wish there was a few people in here that heard my story. They did a thing on Survivor Series, and Caleb, that was here a few weeks ago, he was on a mountain climbing trip, and you guys may have heard his story, and one of the guys fell and died. So they had him, myself, and another guy, Alcides, that lived in, I don't know, I want to say like the Philippines or something like that. I can't remember. I don't know. Huh? What? Oh, no, it was in Colorado. So, yeah. So anyway, there was another guy up here that was falsely accused because he wouldn't rat somebody out. He lived in another country, a third world country, and he was facing like 125 years in prison. They made him dig his own grave. And he was telling the story up here. I'm thinking like, man, my brain tumor is a big deal. This dude's digging his own grave at gunpoint, and they would shoot next to his head. And I mean, it's crazy. I'm sitting there thinking, like, my problems aren't that bad. You know what I mean? Like, to me, they are. To you guys, they might seem like you think brain tumor, you think death. You know, and that's I did think that, but the more that I deal with it, So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is we actually this time last year, we have a fast at our church. Some of you may know what a fast is. Some of you may not. I'm not going to get real deep into it. But the fast is a very important time in my life. It's 21 days. You can do it however you want. But if you're going through a storm, I suggest that you try a little bit of your own personal fast. And it's where you abstain from something earthly, like your cell phone or social media or smoke breaks or drinking pop or changing your diet. And during that time, you just pour a little more into God's word, a little more into his prayer, and you just give a little more of him. And what it does is it allows breakthroughs because God sees that you're moving and he's going to move. If you want to talk about fast after this, I'm going to sacrifice Jake here. Jake or myself or somebody could kind of fill you in on what a fast is. But in the years in the past, like I said, this is our 7th year at the church. We had fasted for our marriage because when we came here, the enemy was attacking our marriage like no other. And we were like, there's no way we're going to make it. You know, we'd been through some stuff with my health, but at the same time, I'm thinking like, I'm going to get a divorce now, you know. So we fasted for our marriage and everything. Our marriage is stronger than it's ever been ever. And then we fasted for our finances to be able to, have a breakthrough in our finances because the world we live in now is paycheck to paycheck. You know, I mean, if you make more, you spend more. And we're guilty of it as well, my wife and I. So, and God gave us a big breakthrough there. So last year, the fast was coming, and I'm like, God, what am I believing you for this year? What is the breakthrough? A fast, a lot of times you have a fast, and people think, oh, the fast is over today. Where's my breakthrough at? Where's my breakthrough at, God? Like, you know what? Like, where's the blessing at? So last year, it was right before the fast. I was like, usually God gives me some kind of vision for the year because the church starts it off every year. Like, you know, what am I believing God for in 2017? And I just couldn't come up with anything. I'm like, man, like this is like what's going on? So I had a follow-up scan that week, and I find out that I had to have surgery again. So January the 6th last year, I found out that I had to have surgery again. My tumor had slowly started growing back. They typically said it was going to be two years. I was at 6, so the doctors were really amazed at that, and they said, you have to have surgery again, and you're going to have chemo, and you're going to have radiation. I'm sitting there thinking, great. Now I have a 10-year-old and a 4-year-old. Before, I didn't really have to explain it to them because we could kind of hide it because they just didn't really know what was going on. Now I have a 10-year-old that asks every question under the moon, and she's going to be like, Dad, what's up with your head? Dad, what's up with this? So I had the surgery at the end of February last year, and I didn't know what I was fasting for still. So I just started fasting, man. I cut all kinds of stuff out of my diet. I was just praying. I was believing God. I was like, you know what, God, I could have swore you healed me back in 2011, but I thought, you know what, who am I to, our book is written, our lives are written in this book. So I'm like, why am I questioning God? I never questioned God once before. Why would I start doing it now? And a lady walks past me in the lobby one Sunday last year, early February, and she says, Matt, she said, you need to go to the Bible, and you need to look at Mark 11:23. So I'm like, Mark 11:23, okay, all right, whatever. So I'm just going to read it to you guys. I didn't tell them to throw it up there. It says, for shortly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. And the way I interpret that, and I actually went to Google, and I started, doing all kinds of research on this scripture, and it says, basically, God has given all of us, that's every single person in this room, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead is inside of you. You might not know it, but it is there, trust me. Like I said, we'll go back to that moment in my life. I'd be like, that power's not in me, but I'll raise my hand because I don't want to go to hell, So the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lies in each one of us. So that in 2017, last year, I had an opportunity. I've been with the same company for 15 years, and I've been blessed. Like God has given me a great job, and I had an opportunity to go into a career field that I've always wanted to do for the last 6 or 7 years. And I was supposed to start this opportunity last February. And all of a sudden I had to find out I had to have surgery. I'm like, all right, so my plan was my plan, but it wasn't God's plan. So 2017 was a straight line, the straightest line. You can take like a line on the floor. That's how I tell people, like, take a straight line on a floor and follow that line. That was my year. There was no ups, there was no downs, there was no lefts, there was no rights, there was no hills, no valleys. And that lady comes up to me and she says, Mark 11:23, and I'm like, okay. And I start reading it, and it just hit me like a ton of bricks. God, I was wanting to go that way, and God said, nope, you're going this way. And as soon as I turned, bam, there was this mountain, and I couldn't see the top of it. I couldn't see as far to the left, or right, and I couldn't see as far to the left. And he says, you're going to speak to that mountain. So there's people in this room today that are dealing with some stuff. You know what I mean? There's finance problems. I know there's addiction problems. I've dealt with my own demons through college, drinking and everything else. You know, we all have those problems. We all have struggles with our families. With mine is a big health issue. And what I'm trying to tell you is the same power that raised Jesus from the dead lies in each and every one of you. You have to know it. And if I'm here to tell you today, and I hope I light that fire in you, because you speak to that mountain. You move that mountain. So fast forwarding, I did my chemo. I did my radiation. And I had no side effects from anything. I lost a little bit of hair right here, which has grown back. I was scared to death. You know, I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, my kids are going to look at me. I'm going to lose all my hair. I'm going to look like this cancer patient. I'm just like, holy cow. Like, you know, that was the hardest part for me. So I finished my treatment at the end of May. I had a scan in July. Everything came back good. I had a scan in October. Everything came back good. And I had a scan on Friday, and everything came back good. And it's not because of what I've done. It's because of what he did. And when I say he, I'm talking about Jesus. And what Jesus did on the cross, I don't think you guys understand. I don't take it lightly. I don't take being able to speak up here to you guys lightly. It is an honor. I'm telling you right now, because 15 years ago when I was 21 years old, and Chris can vouch for this, and a lot of you in this room could vouch for this, you could be the next person up here talking about this. But you have to decide today, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stand there? Or are you going to talk to your mountain? So there's a pastor in our church. His name's Matt Jones. All right, some of you guys know his story. His daughter, he's been here 12 years. His daughter was born with a 12-inch tumor out of her mouth, okay? And it got to the point where when his wife was about 30, and I might not have all the details right, but I know enough of it, is that it got to the point where it was either his wife was going to die or the baby was going to die. And they had to have that talk. And the doctor told her and him that they were going to let the baby die and keep her because she has 2 kids and a husband. So when I was going through my stuff in 2017, he was going through his stuff at the same time. And we just kind of started talking about it one day. And there's a world-renowned preacher. His name's John Gray. You may know who he is. He's been here before. He's Joel Osteen's right-hand man, or he was. He's got his own church now in South Carolina. But anyway, his mom is a spiritual, crazy prayer warrior, like lay her hands on you, Jesus type, heal you right now. If you've never met her, she will. So she told Matt and his wife Kate, when their daughter was going through that stuff, she laughed at him. This lady was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, okay? Alice Gray was. And she looked at the doctor and she says, I don't care about your medical report because you obviously don't know who my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is. She said, you can take that because I don't have anything. And to this day, that was like 7 years ago. She had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. There's not a sign of cancer in her body. But she told Matt and Kate, she said, imagine your faith as a plank of wood. And I made one of these for Matt. I made this for myself. And this lays next to my bed every single day. And it's because he told me this. And the power of a testimony is so crazy. So if you have a testimony and you're hiding it, don't anymore. Talk about it. I heard this guy right here talking about how he was pumped back there. I get to preach at my church. I never thought I'd ever be able to preach at my church. And that's where I'm at right now. If you would have told me the first day I was the very back seat back there, and if you would have told me I'd been up here talking, I'm laughing because I think it's funny, like how God works. It's absolutely incredible. So, squirrel moment. Anyway, so he said that Alice told her, imagine your faith is a plank of wood, Matt. And he said, I'm telling you this because and he said it today when he was preaching there. He said, I'm preaching to myself, and the Holy Spirit gives you what you take out of it. So I'm preaching to myself right now too. So this plank of wood represents your faith, Matt. That's what Alice said to her. So I'm talking to myself right now because his name's Matt too. So, and if it doesn't matter what those doctors say, Matt. You see, you step off that faith, you step off that piece of wood, that's doubt. You step off that faith, that piece of wood, that's fear, that's worry, that's anxiety. The world's around you. It's going to eat you up and spit you out. Don't let it. So what we're saying is to stand firm in your faith, no matter what you're going through today. It doesn't matter if you've dealt with addiction. It doesn't matter if you've lost your job, you filed bankruptcy, you lost your wife, your parents hate you, your kids don't want nothing to do with you. It doesn't matter anymore, because what matters is when you get right with God, then everything else is going to come back together. I promise you that. I promise you that. So what I'm here to tell you guys is today, it doesn't matter what mountain's in front of you. It doesn't matter what's happened in the past, that Jesus Christ took on the cross, and the very first drop that hit the ground changed the world forever. The very first drop of blood that hit the ground. His last breath on the cross is alive in every single one of us. Every single one of us. And what I'm saying is don't run from the pain that you go through right now. Grow from it. Grow from it. You know, I look back, I've never, ever told anybody in this church my childhood. I mean, you know, looking down the barrel of a gun. I mean, there was times that my mom and her husband at the time would leave on a Friday, and Sunday morning would roll around, and I'd be like, Jason, to my brother, I'd be like, where's Mom at? He's like, I don't know, I haven't seen her in 2 days. I'm like, really? You know what I mean? I'm like, what is, I look back and like, I should be mad at my mom. You know what I mean? Like, I should, but I'm not, because God forgives me, so I have to forgive her. So what I'm telling you guys is, it doesn't matter what you're facing. It doesn't matter what you're going through. You just stand on that piece of wood. You stand firm in your faith, and you don't fall into the fear, the worry, the doubt, the anxiety of the world. And I promise you that God will deliver you from whatever you're going through today. And I know there's people in this room right now. I know there's people in this room right now that are battling some stuff, that they're saying, you know what, I don't want to go back out into 2018 because 2017 sucked. You know, 2017 was horrible. I mean, 2017 for me was the toughest year of my life. I'm not lying to you right now, but it was the best year of my life. And it was the best year of my life, because you know why? I get to stand up here and I get to tell you guys how good God is and what he got me through. The hardest time of my life. I had a brain tumor again. They split my head from top to bottom. I had to go up to Westchester, 55 minutes from my house, every single day at 7 o'clock in the morning and fight the Cincinnati traffic. I could have got mad so many times. You know what I did? I just downloaded a playlist of Elevation worship music, and I played it every single day, and I belted it to the top of my lungs as I drove there every single day. And what I'm telling you is there's so much power in your praise and your worship when you're going through something. So if you're battling something today, you got to give praise to God through it. You know, I thank God that I go into this. I mean, Friday morning, there I am. I'm laying in this tube again, and I got this needle in my arm because I don't know, it's stupid how they do it. But anyway, typically they come in and they just give you the shot. And this lady's like, oh, we got to put it in ahead of time. I couldn't bend my arm for like an hour and a half, and I'm mad, actually. But I'm sitting there like, you know what? No, you're not mad, Matt. Don't let the enemy steal your joy today, because I'm telling you, the enemy is lurking all four corners of this building right now. And he's waiting for you to go back out into 2018. He's waiting for you to hang out with the same people you used to be hanging out with. He's waiting for you to get mad at your boss and talk about the people in the, what they call it, cooler talk or whatever it is. What I'm telling you is right now, don't fall into the traps of the enemy in 2018. They talked about it a couple weeks ago, Pastor Marcus did. You know, you don't take 2017 and drag it into 2018. We're a couple days into it, but I'm telling you, I'm here to tell you and remind you right now, whatever you had going on in 2017, that's the past. That's the past. The only way you look back at the past is if you're getting somebody from your past and you're bringing them to where you are right now.